A year ago, we surely pledged our love to each other. I decided in my heart to live with this kind-hearted man. However, his attitude completely changed right after the marriage. The loving man he used to be is long gone. My husband no longer sees me as a woman. Now I'm treated just like a housekeeper. All you need to do is listen to me and stay quiet. That's his catchphrase. I wonder how long this life will continue. At that time, I had no way of knowing that a ray of light would shine on me. My name is Michelle Jenkins. I'm 28. I work as a secretary at my father's company while also being a housewife. The company, once managed by my grandfather, was taken over by my father 2 years ago. Being the daughter of a business owner, I've always been kept at a distance. The men who approach me are mostly after money. Of course, I've never really been in love. At one point, I stopped telling people about my family background. That's when I met the man who would become my husband, a man named David. I had asked my friend who introduced us to keep my status as the boss's daughter a secret. David doesn't gamble or smoke at all. He does drink, but never to excess. He was my ideal man. He would tell me he loved me and that he adored me. I thought I could spend the rest of my life with such a man. However, when I decided to marry David, my father said this: "Michelle, it's fine if you marry him, but could you keep it a secret that you're the boss's daughter?" Dad, how many times have I told you? He's a very good person. He's not after money at all. That may be true, but I don't want you to have a hard time because of that. But if a year passes after you're married and David is still the same, let's talk about the company together. You can apologize for keeping it a secret then. Alright, if you're that insistent, Dad, I'll do as you suggest. I agreed reluctantly with my father's proposition. My father knew of my past heartaches with gold-digging men, and as an overprotective parent, he worried I might get hurt again. I decided I could share the truth with David after a year, as per my father's advice. And until then, I would just be an ordinary secretary. And so, under these circumstances, David and I got married. Now, a year after our wedding, I still haven't revealed the truth to him. The reason is simple. He is no longer the kind man he used to be. As soon as we got married, his behavior became cold and distant. He would come home from work, already in a foul mood, and began to nitpick at the dinners I prepared. "Hamburgers for dinner? Again? We're not children. Can't you think of anything else?" "But, David, you used to love my burgers, didn't you? I've made them countless times before." "Don't talk back! You're always short on dishes. Besides the easy dishes, like salad and soup. You should be able to make at least 5 other dishes." 5 dishes? That's a lot. I have work too, you know. I can't manage that much. "What? When I tell you to do something, you do it. I married you, so you should listen to what I say." I'm sorry. The warmth and kindness he used to show were gone, replaced by a coldness as harsh as ice. At the time, I only thought, he must have had a bad day. But his behavior started to get worse. By the time half a year of our marriage had passed, David had become a full-fledged tyrant. Not just about the cooking. He would complain about everything, from the way I folded the laundry to how I cleaned the house. If I tried to protest, even a bit, he would yell at me with a terrifying look on his face. Just being yelled at would have been bearable, but sometimes he would even throw the meals I made into the trash. A year after our wedding, his tyrannical behavior hasn't changed, and if anything, it's getting worse. Just the other day, I was delayed at work and didn't get home until after 7 p.m. As soon as I said, "I'm home," he started yelling. "You're late! What time do you think it is?" I'm sorry. Work just got a bit out of hand. I'll start on dinner right away. Work got out of hand? A mere secretary like you don't have that much work to warrant staying late. But I really did. I'm handling some accounting tasks too, so there's a lot to process. Don't talk back to me. It's unthinkable for a woman to come home later than her husband. Next time, if you come back later than me, you're quitting your job. That's not fair. From fear of David, I couldn't talk back. Looking back, I wonder if I should have left him sooner. But I was pushing against the worry of my parents when I married. I couldn't reveal the truth. I didn't want to sadden my mom and dad. So I silently bore it, all by myself. Then one day at work, during a break, my father called me into the reception room. I often went in and out of the reception room because I often assisted my father as his secretary. As I entered, my father was already inside. "What's up?" I asked. My father, looking pleased, replied, "It's been a year since you got married to David, right? I think it's about time you told him the truth, as promised." "Oh, yeah, we had that agreement." "Is something wrong? You don't seem happy. Didn't you say that David wasn't after the money?" "Well, yes, but it's just, right now, it's a bit..." Seeing my troubled expression, my father smiled and tried to comfort me, patting my shoulder. "Did you have a fight with David?" "Well, you're both young and newlywed. I guess it's inevitable. My wife and I also had our fair share of arguments back in the day, but look at us now, still happily together. I'm sure you'll be okay, Michelle." "It's not exactly a fight." "Don't worry, everything will be alright. I mean, every couple has their share of arguments, right?" "Well, I suppose you're right." "Anything else bothering you?" "No, nothing really. I'm okay, but I guess I want to wait for things to settle down a bit before I talk to him." "Ha! Well, don't let it get you down too much. A little marital spat is pretty common." It seemed my father thought we were just having a minor argument. To avoid worrying my parents, I hadn't consulted them about my husband up until now. Because of this, my father seemed to believe things were going well between us. "Well, you better make up with David soon." Saying that, my father left the room. Left alone in the room, I was choked with emotions I didn't know how to deal with. I had married David despite my parents' concerns. I absolutely couldn't tell my father about the deteriorating relationship between David and me, but sooner or later, I'd have to talk about it or risk arousing suspicion. To prevent my father from becoming suspicious, I had to maintain my relationship with my husband, somehow. And if possible, I wanted to steer our relationship in a positive direction. That night, I came home on time to talk with David, waiting for him to return. Just as I finished making dinner, he came home. I immediately broached the subject with him. "David, there's something I want to talk about." "Huh? I'm tired, you know." "It's important. Look, we're married, right? I want our relationship to be equal and enjoy our lives together every day." "Equal? Ah, what are you talking about? There's no way you and I are equal." My husband grabbed my hair, yanking it up harshly. "Ouch!" I couldn't help but cry out, but he didn't let go. As if mocking my wincing face, he slowly opened his mouth. "Listen well. I'm the one who did you the favor of marrying you. Be grateful that I deigned to marry a plain and useless woman like you." "Did me the favor? David, didn't you say you loved me?" "Don't make me laugh. I just pretended to like you because you seemed obedient and would be a handy housekeeper." That's not true. You just need to be quiet and listen to me, housekeeper." With these words, he yanked my hair towards his face. From that day on, I gave up hoping. There was no chance of us being equals. And I didn't want to worry my parents, nor could I get a divorce. My appetite dwindled day by day, and I ended up just living with my roommate, my husband. Then one day, while living such a life, I woke up feeling completely exhausted. My head hurts, and I feel a chill. When I took my temperature, it was a whopping 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I forced my aching body to sit up and called out to my husband. "David, I'm sorry, I don't think I can make breakfast today." "What? Why not?" "I've got a fever of 104. I'm in so much pain. Can I just stay in bed for the day?" At this, my husband let out a long sigh and yelled, "Slacking off chores because of a stupid fever. Get to work, you good-for-nothing." "But, please forgive me. I'm really sick." "Shut up! Stop making excuses. You're just a housemaid. Don't you dare defy your master." "Please, just for today. I'm begging you." He clicked his tongue loudly, swung the door open with a bang, and left the room. Next thing I knew, my hands were shaking, and my body was trembling uncontrollably. I finally realized just how close to the edge I was being pushed. If I continue like this, I'll break down, for real. Continuing to live like this, it'll drive me mad, body and soul. I need to do something, but what can I do? I want to think of a way out, but my fever is making my head heavy, and I can't think straight. Maybe it was because I'd been on edge for so long, but I fell back asleep. Several hours later, I was awakened by my husband's raging voice. "Hey! Didn't I tell you to wake up, you dumb woman?" "Huh?" "David." Outside the window, it was already dark. My fever had gone down a lot, but my body was still heavy, and a faint headache lingered. Despite my state, he vented his anger. "I called you multiple times. What are you doing sleeping?" "Called?" "I sent you a text saying I'm bringing my boss home, prepare drinks and snacks. Didn't I?" "Huh? Wait a minute. You knew I was sick today, right? And yet you brought your boss home?" "I invited him to continue drinking at home. My promotion depends on this. Get up and get things ready, now!" "No, I can't. I'm still in my pajamas, and I'm not feeling well at all." "Shut up! Just get out here, now!" As he yanked me by the arm and forced me to stand in the kitchen, my husband then hurried back to his boss, who was likely waiting at the entrance. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Please, come on in." From the entrance, I could hear my husband speaking cheerily. "Are you sure this is okay? This late? I'm sure your wife wouldn't appreciate." "That's what I've been saying. I don't have a wife, just a housemaid." "A housemaid?" "Sort of like a maid wife, you could say. But please, don't mind." As he said this, my husband led his boss into the living room. I was in my pajamas, without any makeup, so I bowed my head in embarrassment. "Nice to meet you. My husband is always telling me about you. I apologize for my appearance." "Ah, I'm the section chief, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry for intruding so suddenly." "Please, don't mind me. I'll prepare something right away." As I returned to the kitchen, hiding my face, my husband let out a tirade. "Hey! Get a move on and make something! You're absolutely useless!" I'm sorry. Just wait a little bit longer." "Instead of opening your mouth, move your hand! Despite the section chief taking the time to visit, how much more do you need to embarrass yourself before you're satisfied? Huh?" I'm sorry." "Sorry about this, Mr. Smith. Our maid is really quite useless." The section chief sat quietly, his face slightly contorted. Even as I prepared and brought over the drinks and snacks, my husband kept making snide remarks like, "You're really useless." When my husband went to the bathroom, Section Chief Smith started to speak. "Excuse me." There was no way I could ignore him. Although I was flustered, I responded, "Yes, is there something you need?" You're the daughter of CEO Allen, aren't you?" My maiden name was Allen. He was referring to CEO Allen, my father. What? How did you... I had previously visited your father's company regarding a business deal. You served me tea then, didn't you? Wait, you were from that time? I usually attended all interactions with our business partners. Each time I served tea and was introduced as the daughter of Mr. Allen. And Smith, he was one of those people. I was informed that David's workplace had become a client of my father's company, but I had not yet told my father that David was working at Smith's company. While glancing towards the bathroom, Smith continued in a hushed tone. "What's up with your husband's behavior? Is he always like this at home?" Yes. I can't believe what you've been through. Why haven't you told Mr. Allen? That is... Regardless, we can't let this continue. Leave it to me." Smith, while looking at me straight in the eyes, quickly packed up his things and left. In that moment, I felt as if something that had been restraining me was slowly being untangled. I felt a profound relief, as if I had finally found an ally. On the other hand, when David returned from the bathroom, he was stunned to find that Smith had left. "Why didn't you stop him, you good-for-nothing?" Despite his shouting, I decided to trust in Smith's words and endure it. Several days later, I was summoned by my father and headed to the company's reception room. Upon entering, I found Smith and a pale-looking David. Why is David here? And Smith, you're here too." I was confused, unable to understand the situation. In the tense atmosphere, my father started speaking with a stern expression. "I heard from Smith. You've been treated horribly by David, haven't you?" That is... "I understand. You're kind-hearted and you wanted to avoid worrying me, didn't you?" "Dad." "Thank you, Smith. Thanks to you, I was able to save my daughter." At my father's words, Smith bowed his head. Immediately afterwards, my father shot a withering glare at the ashen-faced David and coldly stated, "David, I can't believe you turned out to be such a scumbag. I shouldn't have let you marry my daughter." Wait! Please!" David pleaded, shaking visibly. "I had no idea you were the president of our business partner. I didn't know Michelle was a CEO's daughter." "Shut up! So if you knew, you would have treated Michelle better? You're truly a lowlife." No! There's no reason for this." "Oh, reason? I'm going to report you to your company's CEO. I'm acquainted with him, and we have a long-standing relationship." No way!" David filled his eyes with tears and crumbled to his knees. Then he turned to me with pleading eyes. Michelle, say something to your father for me." "You want me to say something? Huh." I raised my voice to vent my pent-up frustration. "Do you have any idea how much I've suffered because of your overbearing, chauvinistic attitude? I've been holding it in all this time. I tried to improve our relationship. It's you who ruined everything, right? Treating me like a housemaid and constantly berating me. Do you know how humiliating that was?" Wait, Michelle, please, forgive me." "Shut up! Don't you dare casually call me by my name. No matter how much you apologize, I will never forgive you. I don't care if you fall into hardship. You get what you deserve. If you understand, never show up in front of me again. Stay out of my life, forever." At the end of my outburst, David started crying uncontrollably. Smith grabbed his arm, bowed, and left the reception room. Afterwards, David and I got divorced. When my father informed David's company's president about the incident, he lost his job as well. It seemed David had a poor attitude at work and was fired considering these factors. Because he was fired for a valid reason, he didn't get any severance pay. After the divorce, David apparently went back to his parents' house. However, his in-laws already knew about the incident. I heard his father gave him a stern scolding and kicked him out of the house. Now, he seems to be working day and night at a factory where he can live in. He probably doesn't have much of a cushion since he has to make alimony payments to me. On the other hand, after the divorce, I moved back to my parents' house. Now, I've completely recovered and am focusing on my job. Since then, I've been meeting Smith regularly, and we have a good relationship. I'm not considering remarrying yet, but if I do someday, I want someone like him. When that time comes, I hope to build a happy family.
On the day of our honeymoon departure, he presented divorce papers before me. I'm taking my whole family with me. If you don't like it, we'll get divorced. Fine, but I'm still single, you know. Huh? I screamed in my mind as he stood there dumbfounded. Take that. My name is Emma, 35 years old, and I work at a real estate company. I enjoy my work and find it fulfilling, and I have been fortunate to have supportive seniors and juniors. On the other hand, my personal life lacks any particular hobbies, and I have never had a boyfriend. I secretly felt anxious. My friends were getting married one after another, reaching their peak at 30. There are only a few of us who are still single. My juniors also left the company one after another, and each time it felt like a stab in the chest. That's when I met Brian through a friend's introduction. He was 2 years younger and had a smile that tickled my maternal instincts. He spoke few words and always listened to my opinion when making decisions. He always prioritized my thoughts. Never having any experience with men before, I quickly fell for Brian's personality. Our relationship developed smoothly. When I mentioned marriage, he responded, "Then let's get married." When it comes to marriage, a dozen of decisions must be made. Wedding ceremony, honeymoon, and a new home to live in together. It's a once-in-a-lifetime major event, so I wanted to make decisions together. But no matter what we decided, he would always listen to my opinion. He wouldn't express his own opinion, just agreeing with me. Brian's personality felt a bit unreliable, and I started to feel dissatisfied with him. There is another thing that troubles me. It's my relationship with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law's personality was completely different from Brian's easygoing nature. She doesn't listen to my opinions and immediately imposes her own ideas. Emma, when you get married, of course you'll quit your job and focus on taking care of the house, right? At your age, if you don't hurry, you won't be able to have children. Brian is working hard, so as a woman, you should focus on the family. It's the wife's duty to support her husband. When I went to greet her, these were the first words she directed at me. The husband works outside, and the wife takes care of the home. She still holds on to such old-fashioned ideas. The truth is, I earn more money than Brian. He doesn't seem to think much about it, and has even told his parents about it. But his mother doesn't seem to like it. A woman who earns more than a man doesn't have any charm. Maybe you can't do any household chores, can you? A wife should be able to cook, do laundry, clean, and take care of her husband's health. Can you do that? My mother-in-law said, looking down on me. If it were Brian saying that, it would be one thing, but isn't it different when it's my mother-in-law? It's not something to brag about, but I can manage all household chores since I've been living alone for a long time. And I have no intention of quitting my job after marriage, and I want to prioritize myself as much as Brian. That's what I thought. But Brian didn't help me even when my mother-in-law criticized me. Instead of refuting my mother-in-law, he nodded along with her statements. Because of that, I felt a bit uneasy about Brian. Can I really rely on someone like this for the rest of my life? Well, Brian is younger than me after all. Maybe he'll become more reliable in the future. If this marriage falls through, I might never get married in my life. Anxiety and desires clashed in my mind, swirling around in endless conflict. However, time doesn't wait, even if I'm troubled. There are so many things I need to decide for the wedding, the destination for the honeymoon, applying for time off from work, and so on. The to-do list keeps piling up. With a sense of unease, I spent busy days preparing for both work and marriage. One day, I consulted Brian. I think, considering our work, we can only take a long vacation at this time, so is it okay to have the honeymoon during this period?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Both Brian and I have similar quiet periods at work. If we want to take a long vacation, this is the only timing we have. The problem is the wedding. The venue I've always dreamed of is so popular that it's booked for over a year in advance. In that case, what about going on the honeymoon before the wedding? I looked it up and it seems some people do that. If we have the wedding first, it will be another 2 years before we can go on the trip.
If you are okay with that, Emma, then I'm fine with it too.
I thought Brian wouldn't object, but to agree so readily. At this rate, it seems like all my opinions will be accepted for the honeymoon destination, the menu for the wedding, and the decoration of the venue. I do have a desire for Brian to express his own opinions a little, but it's better than being opposed. So, whenever I found a moment, I continued to progress with the preparations for the honeymoon and the wedding. In the end, we decided to go to Europe for the honeymoon. I debated until the last minute between Hawaii and Europe, but Hawaii is close by, and I'm sure there will be another opportunity to go there. So, I chose to take a trip around Italy and France, experiencing the picturesque streets and delicious cuisine. I also wanted to explore the stylish accessories and maybe buy some commemorative tableware since it's the start of a new life. After considering various schedules and destinations, I completed the application about a month before the tour. By that time, I was completely excited. After all, it's my first overseas trip. It's impossible not to feel thrilled. My mind became filled with everything related to Europe, from buying the necessary items for the trip to planning our activities at the destination. Because of that, any dissatisfaction I had with Brian had completely disappeared. As the honeymoon approached 1 week away, Brian suddenly brought up a conversation.
Emma, I have a favor to ask.
A favor? That's unusual. I wonder what it could be. It's rare for Brian to ask me for something. Could it be about the trip? Did he find a place he wants to visit? What is it? What's wrong? I asked, filled with anticipation, and he innocently made the request.
I want to go to Champs-Élysées when we're in Paris. Mom really wants to go there.
What? My mother-in-law? Wait a minute, what do you mean? I couldn't catch up with this sudden situation, but Brian replied as if it were obvious.
Huh? Since everyone is going, we'll all be together even during the trip, right?
What do you mean by everyone? It's a honeymoon, so it's obvious that it's just me and you, the two of us going.
But my mom thinks it's normal for the whole family to go.
First of all, I only made reservations for 2 people, you and me, Brian. The tour deadline was 7 days ago, so today is the last day to register. Regardless of whether we go together or not, I only booked for 2 people, so there's no way we can go.
If you ask the travel agency, they can figure something out.
As I was dumbfounded by his statement, the intercom in the house rang. On the intercom screen, I saw the figure of my in-laws. Without caring about my surprise, my in-laws entered the house carrying a large number of bags. Ignoring my objections, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled as she announced, "I thought I'd leave the luggage here since we are leaving soon. I'm so excited." Then Brian said, "Just leave the luggage here," and started leading my in-laws into the room without my consent. Wait a minute! I tried to stop him in a hurry, but my mother-in-law stared at me sharply. Oh, what is it, Emma? I hope you're not suddenly saying, I don't want to go together now. I didn't agree to go together in the first place. I immediately retorted, but my mother-in-law paid no attention, saying, You heard it just now, didn't you? But Brian always thought we would go together with you, right? In response to my mother-in-law's flattering question, Brian replied with a simple, Yeah. Taking advantage of his affirmation, my mother-in-law began to deny me. It's normal for the husband's parents to go on the honeymoon. Don't you have such common sense? I hope you won't have any unpleasant experiences during the trip being with you. Since it's a special honeymoon, we want to make good memories, right? I'll make sure to drill common sense into you during this week before we go on the trip. It's supposed to be a special honeymoon? Drilling common sense into me? It felt like everything was being ruined. I clearly felt my blood boiling. Mother-in-law, this is a honeymoon, you know? Normally, it's supposed to be just the husband and wife going, right? I desperately held my ground. If I continued to listen to my mother-in-law's side, it would affect the future. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. However, my mother-in-law stubbornly refused to compromise. Not only that, she started to deny me. The husband's parents are supposed to go on the honeymoon together. It's just common sense. I can't believe you dislike being with us. I thought we would become a family, but our common sense is different. You don't like me and nothing seems to match. How sad. As if she had been hurt herself, my mother-in-law lowered her eyebrows in an artificial manner. The end of her words, how sad, contained an underlying smirk. I was convinced that she was deliberately trying to trap me. That's how certain I was. Even Brian, without questioning, began to blame me based on my mother-in-law's words.
Emma, what the hell? They're my parents. It's okay to go on a honeymoon together, isn't it?
It's impossible. We've already made the reservations for 2 people. Besides, I've never heard of families accompanying a honeymoon trip. I declared, and Brian shouted angrily, as if picking a fight.
I never thought you hated my parents so much, Emma. That's it. Just leave for today.
He looked at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As Brian spoke, a wicked smile formed on my mother-in-law's face. Why does he always take his mother's side without listening to his spouse's opinion? Especially at a time like this, I wanted him to support my views. Before I could even react to his words, I found myself pushed out to the entrance. Just before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's smug expression. I was left outside, unable to do anything but stand there. Why am I being treated like the bad guy? Why does everything have to be ruined, including this precious trip? Frustration and sadness overwhelmed me, and tears began to flow. A few hours later, I received a message from Brian.
I want you to see if it's still possible for them to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel this trip and apply for a tour where all 4 of us can go. Please think rationally. If you reconsider, we can figure it out properly.
I don't think I'm in the wrong, so I have no reason to apologize or respond. Brian must be angry too, because there was no contact after that message. Time passed, and the day of our honeymoon departure finally arrived. I couldn't imagine enjoying it in this state, but we had been preparing for this honeymoon for a month. I couldn't refuse. As I prepared to leave the house with a heavy heart, the intercom rang. Brian had come to pick me up. We hadn't seen each other since that incident, so I didn't know what kind of face to put on. The fact that he came to pick me up meant that he still intended to go on the trip. But he didn't have a single suitcase with him. Instead, he handed me a divorce paper.
After hurting my parents, you still intended to go on this trip, didn't you? I'm taking my entire family on this honeymoon. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. My mom said it would be better that way.
Saying that, he thrust the divorce paper in front of me. In that moment, I finally realized what kind of person he was. I thought he would listen to my opinions and prioritize me, that he was kind, but that wasn't the case. This man is just someone without his own opinions. and he prioritizes his family over me. That's Brian. As I came to that realization, I felt my feelings for him cooling down. Even if I were to marry him, I couldn't see myself overcoming the many challenges that awaited us in the future. And becoming a family with that mother-in-law, it was an impossible scenario. Determined, I pointed at the divorce paper in front of me and said, "Sure, but I'm still single, you know." "Huh?" Brian exclaimed, clearly surprised by my words. "Single? What do you mean?" "Weren't you listening? We talked about going on the honeymoon, but delaying the registration until the day of the ceremony. I made sure to get your permission, Brian, you know. You didn't forget, did you? The marriage certificate is still in the drawer, and you even said, 'If you are fine with it, Emma, then I'm fine too.'" "That's right. Divorce or not, we're not even married yet. There's no problem with going on the honeymoon with my maiden name." Perhaps he remembered my words as Brian's expression suddenly changed. But immediately, he turned red and raised his voice in frustration. "Are you out of your mind? To give up on marriage just because of a honeymoon? Get a grip!" I responded, matching Brian's intensity with my own strong voice. "This is the result of me being rational. I've been so desperate to get married that I couldn't see reality clearly. I don't think I can be happy marrying someone who doesn't listen to the opinions of their future spouse and doesn't support them. I'd rather stay single for life. Thanks for making me think that way." Haste makes waste. I keenly felt that this saying was true. "Hey, Emma, let's calm down and start over from scratch, okay?" He looked like he was about to cry. His pleading voice trembled. But I won't be fooled anymore. I will break free from this guy. Without realizing it, I found myself shouting loudly at Brian. "If you're so desperate for a family trip, why don't you go with your family of 3? But in return, you'll have to plan everything, from the tour reservations to the itinerary, all by yourself. After always relying on others, it's about time you experience the difficulty yourself. If you think you can handle it, go ahead, you indecisive man." I pulled out the marriage certificate from the drawer and tore it to shreds in front of Brian. In response to the sudden turn of events, his mouth was left hanging open. Overwhelmed by my determination, Brian was completely taken aback. "Well, do you understand how serious I am now? I refuse to have a future that's pitch black. It's over between you and me. Why don't you hurry back to your beloved mommy and cry to her, you mama's boy." Leaving a dumbfounded Brian behind, I slammed the front door shut. Given his state, he might actually go cry to his mother. I could easily imagine him doing that. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our reservations. Since it was a same-day cancellation, we were charged 100% of the cancellation fee. I billed Brian for the entire fee since he was the one who ruined our honeymoon. It was the natural outcome. Later, Brian blamed me for the failed marriage and spread rumors about it to those around us. However, it seemed that no one sympathized with him among our relatives and coworkers. Instead, he started to be seen as an unconventional mama's boy due to his past actions and was disliked by many. When I told my parents about the divorce, they were initially surprised, but quickly accepted it. Marriage isn't the only source of happiness. As long as you're happy, Emma, that's what matters. I couldn't be more grateful for my mother's words. As a side note, since then, my hobby has become traveling. I felt it would be a waste to let long vacations go to waste, so I embarked on my first solo trip. Going overseas was a bit difficult, but I enjoyed a relaxing time in historic cities I had always wanted to visit. Wow, being alone is actually quite enjoyable. Thanks to that historical adventure trip, I've started to fully enjoy solo traveling whenever I have time off. On my next break, I'm planning to embark on my next overseas trip. I've begun a life where I won't let myself be controlled by marriage alone.